No pressure going after the better tubs, but luckily we're here with Mayor-elect Larry. And first, so good to see everyone. And Mayor-elect, as you know, the theme of today is hope and human rights. And oftentimes when people think about human rights, it's a conversation that's external to America. It's about these other countries and these other places. But as you know, there's human rights issues happening in this country today, and a lot of it motivated your work pre-being mayor. So can you speak a little bit about how you think of human rights in an American context, and how does that influence some of the work you want to do now as the mayor-elect of San Francisco?
First, it's an honor to be with Mayor Tubbs, someone that I've admired for a very long time. I came to one of these settings, just for the record, and was standing backstage trying to introduce myself when I was running Tipping Point. I think it was in Detroit.
Yeah.
So it's an honor to be with you. And your wife is much better than you are, just for the record. I think of it as opportunity. What we always talked about at Tipping Point was no matter the zip code that you were born into, you should have the same opportunity that I had as a child growing up here in San Francisco. And I remember growing up and had a close friend who lived literally 10 blocks away from me. I grew up in Pacific Heights, and he was growing up in Western Addition, and he had gates on his windows. I did not. And you had to really concern yourself walking outside the front door. And to me, that stuck with me throughout my life. I talked about this often on the campaign trail. My dad was a rabbi here in San Francisco, but after that, he helped run the Jewish Community Federation here in the Bay Area, but he helped tens of thousands of Jews flee persecution in the 80s and 90s from places like Ethiopia and Russia. So he would help people he would never meet in his entire life. And so I grew up in a family that was committed to providing opportunities. It's what I continue to do at Tipping Point, and that's going to be the focus of my work as the mayor coming in January, to lift up all San Franciscans and provide opportunities. Just because the zip code you're born into should not determine whether or not you have a shot.
Absolutely, and particularly in this moment, I think San Francisco has a very special place in reminding us of our better angels, and reminding us that human rights are good things,
Yes.
and reminding us that everyone having a fair shot benefits everyone. So we're very much looking forward to your leadership. And speaking of which, hope oftentimes, particularly in the last month, at least for me, has been in shorter supply than usual. So could you speak to me, particularly in this moment, as a public leader, an elected leader, what gives you hope, and then what gives you hope specifically for this place that you get to govern?
I'm going to say this very clearly. San Francisco, hope is alive and well here in this city. Yes, let's clap about that. Listen, we are going to have our challenges in DC, but I think what we learned in the previous administration and with the incoming president again is let's focus, and I am going to focus on San Francisco. I'm going to focus on providing those opportunities, making sure that we get results for the taxpayers and the residents of our city. It's something that we kind of forgot about. I just came from a meeting this morning with the head of our parks, Phil Ginsburg, doing a really, really good job, but he and I talked about a park 5 blocks from here where there was 10 people this morning openly using, shooting up, and struggling with addiction. And we are not doing well by them, and we're not doing well by my kids who I drove to school this morning. Seeing that on our streets, we are not getting people the help that they need. But where my hope comes in is we have the capacity, we have the resources, and if San Franciscans can work together, not let the outside noise distract us, we come together, we work together, we can do better, and we will.
And I know a lot of your work pre-mayor was focused on what I consider a vast human rights abuse, which is the persistence and prevalence of poverty in our country and our society. So can you talk a little bit about specifically how you view poverty in the human rights frame, A, and then B, as mayor of San Francisco, what can you do to attack that issue, which I know is something you've been working on previously to be a mayor?
See, you're just so much smarter than I am. I don't. I rather you answer that question. I'm gonna answer it quickly, but then I want you to talk a little more than just asking me all these questions because
You the mayor-elect. I'm the former mayor. It says former mayor.
Yeah. But you've done amazing work on this issue. For me, it starts. We talk about we got to prevent it. It starts with education. It starts with our early childhood care. Like you have to get it right 0 to 5. 0 to 5 is just about everything. And then here in San Francisco, our public schools continue to struggle. The dysfunction and the politicization of our school board. I hope we've come back to a kind of a common sense approach. We have some new board members coming on. We have this impetus to change because we have so many kids that are struggling in our public schools. We got families fleeing the public school system. And so we have to get early childhood right, education right, and we have to get our public schools right. And so that's going to be the focus that we had at Tipping Point, always on early childhood education. Obviously housing, employment, and housing, I said all right. So that's where I come. But I'm turning around. I want your answer on this.
Yeah, no, briefly, because we still got time. I got 3 more
No,
questions.
but listen, I like doing
but,
this too.
But I think when we think of sort of poverty as the avoidable impairment of basic human needs, and we think about how we have so much, yet so many people have nothing, it just becomes very clear to me that it's not about creating artificial ceilings, but just making sure everyone has a floor. That as a civilized society, as it's 2024, and societies evolve, and at one point women's rights weren't a thing, and for the time being they still are. We're going to have to fight for them probably more so moving forward. At one point, sort of me being a free person wasn't a thing, but eventually society evolved. So I think poverty is that next thing where eventually we'll wake up and say, you know what, this is a human rights abuse, and actually we'll be better off, all of us, if we didn't have it. Maybe we wouldn't have so many addiction issues. Maybe we shouldn't have so many issues with crime. Maybe we'd have so many of the other dysfunctions we complain about if we just made sure everyone had shelter, food, and the basics. It's not luxury, just a place to sleep, the things we know people need to be human. And I think that's why I'm so inspired by your work and you becoming mayor, because you don't have to be taught that. You've done that. You spent the last decades focused on, in a community that's so wealthy, the Bay, Silicon Valley. Why is poverty so persistent? And then more importantly, why do we allow it? Why are we okay with it? I think if anything, your leadership in this moment is a reminder that there's too many things we let just go. There's too many things we're comfortable with. And we should all be very uncomfortable with the human rights abuse you described just 10 blocks from here.
Yeah, I still, and it's why I ran, because I realized taking my kids to school every day down right here on Gough, like I was getting upset every day. I got upset this morning that we are, as a government, as a city government, failing the basic goals of government, which is to take care of its people. Now, public safety is an important one that I talked about often, but yeah, providing shelter for people. It should not be out on the street. Giving someone a mental health bed or a drug treatment bed, that shouldn't be off the table because of cost. It actually costs us less to get them the help that they need. The other thing, the reason I want you to talk more is because I think what happens, and you better prevent me from doing this, but you get into office, and I'm not there yet, by the way. I'm not the mayor yet. We take office January 8th. I think elected leaders need to listen, like truly listen to the people, the experts, like who are in this room today. You are an expert. Like that's why I called on you to ask me to get ready to take office. We need to listen to each other more. We need, whether you disagree with somebody or you agree with them, you gotta find ways to bring people together, and that's going to be that's my instinct, and that's going to be a core value of our administration. And we got to listen to the people that are struggling, and we got to bring those that have together with those that deserve more.
And can you talk about sort of, in this conversation around human rights, the roles that different folks have, right? Because you've been in philanthropy, now you're in. So let's start with philanthropy, because now you're in government. What role does the philanthropic sector or philanthropy or nonprofits have in the fight for human rights, or as you so said eloquently said earlier, this idea of creating more opportunity? Like, what can they do?
I always thought of our work at Tipping Point as like an incubator, like testing good ideas, seeing if they would work. If they didn't, okay, you quickly move on to the next, because those dollars are you can just deploy them more quickly than government can. But once it works, what we tried to do is get city government or state government to take it on, because that's where the scale comes from. That's how I thought about it. I imagine that's how you think about it.
Yeah, I think.
You see how I did that? You see I turned it back to him.
I got to be working on my anniversary. You and Anna need to be. Anyway, we'll talk later. I think philanthropy, at its best, creates models as what the world should be, right? And that's why I'm so happy to be here with the Heising-Simons Foundation, because it's one of the few that I've interacted with that get the need to take risks.
Yep.
That, like, if philanthropy can't take risks, who can?
That's right.
Like, if it's too risky
Yep.
if it's too risky for philanthropy, how are we going to get government
That's right.
To do it? And the biggest example, I think, comes from the work around basic income. That now we have 60 pilots, over $350 million in government funding. But it started with philanthropy.
Yep.
It started with that catalytic capital. It started with someone saying, hey, we care about this issue of human rights. We care about poverty. What can we do to test it and see what works?
Yep.
And then once we know that it works, let's not keep testing it. Let's not keep piloting. Let's figure out how to get closer to policy. So I think philanthropy has to be ahead of government and model for government. This is what, because this might be a little bit controversial, but hey, you asked me to talk. I think that philanthropy as an institution is an indictment of the ways in which policies are failing. I think every single program is a policy failure, right? And for me, the goal is to move from charity to justice and figure out how to model what works and then marshal public will so that elected officials who want to do good have the toolkit
Yep.
as to how to do it. And we have to do more of that. But back to
I
you,
agree.
because again,
I
you're
agree.
being interviewed.
I agree.
Back to you. And what I appreciate is how you didn't take my bait to go national, to talk about my favorite person to talk about some days, our incoming president, and how you stayed really laser focused on your job as a leader of San Francisco. So can you speak to us broadly about the importance of that? Like, as we talk about these values, as
Yep.
we talk about these things we care about, why is it important, not just to talk about it, but to model it locally, to actually have some credibility to the things we talk about?
Yeah, some reporter asked me, and everyone's trying to bait me into talking about national stuff and DC stuff. But like I said, we have our own issues here. We have so many problems that require us to focus that you can get distracted. And this is why, when you get into office, you're looking for your next office. You're looking for to win re-election, or and that's why I said, like, I have no interest in going to Sacramento or to DC.
Yeah, you haven't started yet. You don't know that.
I will admit to you this: the first 4 weeks of this transition, I am having a great time. I am loving this role. I am so excited to take office, to get to work for all of you, and I will. I'm going to be serving you, and I'm going to do it and have some fun doing it. But we have real historic challenges in San Francisco. We have close to $1 billion budget deficit that I'm walking into. We have a incredibly contentious hotel strike going on right now, where people are trying to get basic wages and health care. And so we have our own problems. The idea that I would come into office and start talking about national issues doesn't make sense. That's not why I was elected. I was elected to solve problems and get results for the people of San Francisco. And if I start doing other things, I'm not being true to myself, because I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in I will always protect our people, our LGBTQ plus community, our immigrant community. They have an ally in me. I say that every single day. But what Many of them want also are safe streets. They want functional public schools. They want more housing being built so we can get back to having our workforce be able to live here instead of commute an hour and a half, 2 hours away. So we got enough work to do right here, and I'm focused on that.
Well, no, and I love that because I think part of my reflection from November has been the delta between what we say and what we do.
Yep.
So you espouse to be about opportunity and equality and justice, yet the highest effective poverty rate in this country is in California. In fact, you drive anywhere in California, you're going to see people who don't have shelter. I think it muddles the message when we say we're for these things and this is bad, this is bad. But it's like, no, what's bad is that my kid can't go to a good school.
Yeah.
What's bad is that I can't afford housing. So I appreciate your example and leadership on that.
And imagine if we can get it right here. Then that message, then we start traveling.
Yeah, everyone loves it. Then it's like it's not what we say, it's what we do and how they marry. So my last question, Mayor-elect, is for the past 15 or so minutes, you've given us a lot of jewels, a lot of gems, and I started this conversation asking you about what makes you hopeful about San Francisco. And I think my last question for you is more an external-facing one in terms of what can you offer for people here who are like, yeah, you're hopeful, you're the mayor. I'm not the mayor, I just live here. Like, what can we do to give those folks hope? And what can they do to be part of this fight to make human rights a reality in San Francisco and America and across the world?
Everyone's got to do the little things. We all do. As mayor-elect, as mayor, I'm going to make sure I focus on the little things so we can get the big things done. I want to be very clear. When we are at our best, when this city is at its best, this is the greatest city in the world. There is no question in my mind because we've led on human rights for our entire history. Mm-hmm. Right now, we are not. We are not leading on it because of the street conditions and the people suffering on our streets. So we get back to doing the basics. We get back to, I started something, co-founded something called the Civic Joy Fund with Manny, who runs Manny's in the Mission, and I've talked about this often. Like every Saturday, we had cleanups, like trash pickups with this guy, Vincent, who started this organization called Refuse Refuse. And it sounds, little, and it's taken off. It is all over. We are going to do something like that around Inauguration Day. Like, we are going to get everybody activated so that they can do the little things to clean up our parks, to clean up our streets. We're going to activate volunteers across this city, not just then, but throughout my term. Just get involved. But if you're listen, we're preaching to the choir. If you're in this room, you're already doing little things and big things. So just keep doing it and invite people in, give people hope, make them realize that they have to be part of the solution too. It's what you and I have done, whether it's our small nonprofits or in elected office. So I'm going to just continue to push that message of get engaged. Do not lose hope.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor-elect Daniel Lurie.